You're listening to Quiero Dinero, a personal finance podcast for the modern Latina. I'm your host, Janice Torres Rodriguez, and I'm here to help you be poderosa with your dinero. I'm an engineer, a blogger, and an entrepreneur that built a $50,000 side hustle, and I'm obsessed with all things personal finance. On this show, we're going to talk about how to make dinero, how to keep your dinero, and how to make it grow. Are you ready? Vámonos. Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Yo Quiero Dinero, the podcast. This is your host, Janice, and I can't believe I'm saying this right now, but this is actually our season finale. Oh my God, I can't believe we're wrapping up season 2. I feel like it just started. But then again, doesn't this whole year just feel like, oh my God, what happened? Where are we? What day is this? I have no idea. So anyway, y'all, this is our season finale, and I think we are wrapping it up with an amazing episode. We're actually going to be talking to Marc Russell, who you probably know as Better Wallet on Instagram. Marc is a financial advisor and creator of the personal finance Instagram account Better Wallet. When we recorded this episode, he had around 30,000 followers. He's now amassed over 50,000 followers since recording this episode by providing no-nonsense financial advice and sharing his amazing journey of paying off $80,000 worth of debt in 3 years. He's passionate about educating people of color about the importance of building generational wealth, avoiding lifestyle creep and debt, and investing. He's been featured in NextAdvisor, and I'm so excited to have Marc here. His story is quite the story. He has a really, really impactful life story that's really going to inspire you to, believe that you can actually overcome anything that life throws your way. So I can't wait to hop into this episode. Before we hop into today's episode, I don't want you guys to be sad just because season 2 is over. We're going to be doing an amazing series during the month of December, replaying all of our favorite episodes about FIRE, or financial independence and early retirement. So definitely stick around for that. You're going to get to hear guests that were on the show early on in the season. Maybe you haven't already listened to their episode, and you're going to get to learn all about this topic that really I'm truly obsessed with, which is a concept of financial independence and early retirement. So definitely stick around for that. We're going to be setting ourselves up for success in 2021. And the first step is educating ourselves on the possibility that exists of you becoming completely financially independent and not having to work if you don't want to. I mean, I think that sounds pretty damn good to me. So definitely stick around for that. And if you don't already follow us on Instagram, we're going to be doing a series of awesome IG Lives for you to learn all about things like investing in individual stocks, how to travel hack to save money, and more. So if you don't already follow us on Instagram, what the hell are you waiting for? Go and follow us at Yo Quiero Dinero Podcast. If you want more free content, more education, and more inspiration, go to our blog, yoquierodineropodcast.com, where you can find episode show notes along with personal finance articles and tips to help you get your money right. And as always, if you're loving this podcast, please make sure to share, rate, review, and subscribe so that listeners like you can find us too, and so you never miss an episode. If you're a side hustler, a gig worker, or a full-on entrepreneur boss babe, you know that tax time sucks. But it's a necessary evil when it comes to owning your own business, so why not make it less stressful? That's why I love Keeper Tax. Keeper Tax automatically finds tax write-offs amongst your purchases for your business, and it helps people save over $1,200 in 10 minutes on average. First, they scan your past purchases for write-offs. It auto-monitors your purchases for write-offs you might have missed, and at tax time, you can file your taxes right through Keeper Tax or seamlessly export your savings. To find out more, check out keepertax.com/dinero. All right, Marc, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to talk to you.
Not a problem at all. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so I discovered you on Instagram. You have an amazing platform that you actually shared your debt payoff journey, and we're going to get into all of that. So why don't you start off by introducing yourself to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Marc Russell. I'm the owner of Better Wallet. And a little bit about me, I came from very humble beginnings, from central Pennsylvania. I went through adoption care. Both of my biological parents were, in the drug scene. Thus, foster care. Was adopted at 13. Put myself through college and kind of weaseled my way into the finance world, and learned a lot along the way, about managing my own money and then also managing others, as it relates to investing and budgeting and so much and so forth.
Wow.
Became a stockbroker, at the Vanguard Group, which everyone knows and loves nowadays. But when I was coming into Vanguard, they were trying to be a larger player in the space, and now they're a, four, maybe going on $5 trillion company. So I was able to work through the ranks there, and eventually moved off of Vanguard and went into the private equity space, and then I became a financial advisor. And then I look back and I was like, wow, like I've learned a lot, but I know there's a lot of people from where I'm from that don't understand, what a 401k or IRA is, or, what a trust fund is. How about I teach others what I've learned from A to Z, from foster care to manage my own money to, working within private equity. So I launched Better Wallet, and when I first started, I was like, who's gonna actually listen to me talk about finance? Like
Hmm.
who cares that much about finance like I do? And you go from one like to one follower to 100 followers to 1,000, and it keeps going from there. And what I've realized is that there's a lot of people out there that are looking for that information. They want to understand their finances more. So it's very noble work, and I try every day to take what I've learned and pass it on to others and collect feedback and iterate as I go. So it's been a fun, I guess it's almost a year and a half at this point, going on this Bear Wallet journey. And I've learned a lot, along the way, and I'm looking forward to the next year and a half, 5 year, 10 years, of this business, I guess it is now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you've gone in a year and a half to almost 30,000 followers, which is amazing. So that definitely speaks to the fact that you are talking about things that resonate with people. And I know me personally, when I found you on Instagram, I just really connected with all the stuff you were posting. I feel like we were going back and forth, like just liking each other's posts. And I'm like, I got to talk to this guy because he's doing amazing stuff. So I really appreciate you being in this space. And I love that you are sharing all of this knowledge that you've built up over time and over your career with a community that you know very well has been historically disenfranchised and has been completely ignored,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, by the financial industry, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've learned over time that the people that I was dealing with were, frankly white men. And I realized that, hey, like, they're getting all this financial advice, but do they actually need it? Where I'm from, if someone had, another $20 or another sometimes $10 to feed their, themselves or their kids, that meant that would mean the world to them. So, um,
Absolutely.
and at a certain point, I was just thinking through how to go about passing that information on without charging.
Hmm.
And Instagram and Facebook and all the other social platforms, allowed me to have a platform in order to do that, which is great. Um, it's great to talk to people and say, hey, like, here's how to build a budget, and this is what it looks like.
Hmm.
Or this is how you calculate variable expenses or whatever it might be, because this is how the big businesses do it, at a more grand scale. But you could do it just like them in order to achieve financial security and financial wealth. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. If you don't know about these topics, if you're not literate in financial, information, it's going to be impossible for you to implement this stuff in your life. So just knowledge is power, and I really appreciate what you're doing. So I want to get to know more about you and your own money story. This is a question that I ask to all of my guests because I feel like, as people of color, we definitely have very interesting relationships with money. And I think it definitely helps us connect when we learn each other's stories. So, can you talk about your relationship with money? Like, what was that like growing up?
Yeah, yeah. So, where do I begin? Well, I as I mentioned, I went through foster care. I was eventually adopted by a family at the age of 13, and luckily, my first time having a biological father, or I'm sorry, an adopted father, he was a great one. He went through the military. He grew up poor, and he was definitely still lower class or lower income class. And what he has always told me was, "Hey, like, you need to make your own money because I'm not going to be here forever." And he was really, upfront about that. And a little bit more context. So I was the only brother, or the only son of the family. Thus, the reason why he adopted me, because we had five other siblings, and they were all girls. And he was like, "Oh, I want like a boy." And my mom, and my dad couldn't have a boy because God's plans. And he was like, "Well, I'm just gonna adopt one. So here comes me." And he always taught me, "Hey, like, make your own money, cut grass, cut hair, do landscaping, whatever it might be, wash cars, shovel walks, whatever it is, to have money in your pocket so you don't have to ask anyone for anything."
Mm,
So from a young age, he taught me how to be an entrepreneur. He, helped me save up my first dollars in order to get my own push lawnmower, which was great because I owned a business asset, right? And it was funny because I was that kid that would save all my money. I would, I would have all my money kind of stashed underneath my underneath my mattress. And I would love just to, frankly, I would just love to look at it and be like, "Man, like, this is cool. Like, I have money. I could do a lot with this. I could buy a new pair of shoes." Like back when FUBU was cool, I was like, "Man, I could buy my new pair of FUBUs and just be like everyone else." Um, and that is the reason why I work so hard, is because no one in my area really had money in general. We all were
mhm,
relatively poor. We look forward to playing basketball on the basketball courts, and there was no such thing as someone growing up rich in my town. It just wasn't a thing. But yeah, my association with money was that, like, I always knew how to generate it. I knew how to save it. I didn't know anything about investing growing up, nor did my parents. I didn't learn about 401k until I started working for Vanguard, and I was like, "Oh, this is a thing. Yeah, people have to retire. Oh, okay, I get it." Um, so like growing up, it was like that. And when I went off to college, I always thought that, hey, like, when you go off to college, like, someone's going to pay for it. Like, you can't, like, you'll go there and someone will just hand you $20,000, and that could have been further from the
would not be
truth.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was naive, coming from a small town. I just didn't really know any better. And my mom told me, "Hey, like, if you're gonna go off to school, you're gonna pay for it yourself." Which, again, tough love. She's great, but she was definitely hard on me. And I was finding myself in the student aid office every semester, just
Mm.
begging, literally begging for money, saying, "Hey, my grades are great, give me money." Like, and they knew me by my first and last name, and they knew what the deal was when I stepped into the office. "I need money. I'm going to graduate in 4 years, and you're going to make it happen." So I realized that that was more of a dream than what it actually was. And I found myself working different jobs in order to pay for school. I became a RA, a resident assistant, where I was in charge of about 50 kids, freshmen. Um, I say kids, but they were only like maybe 2 or 3 years younger than me. Um, so I was an RA. I sold blood plasma to eat. I was a referee. Literally, I did anything to put money in my pocket and to pay off school. At the same time, I was applying for scholarships, grants, loans, whatever it might be, to get through. And after 4 years, I'm excited. I was excited to say, hey, like, I graduated from. I went to Penn State, um, to say I graduated from this institution, but no one knew how much went into just grinding every single day to make sure I have food, to make sure I could pay for tuition, to make sure I could pay for housing. And what also complicated that was at the end of my freshman year, my dad actually passed away. The guy I was just telling you about. Yeah, and that was hard because as I mentioned, I never had like a father before. So, to have him in my life for, what, 5, 6 short years and have him pass away like literally before my eyes was a lot. But that, not to shout out to Philadelphia, not to go from to mention boys to men, but I went from a boy to a man overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to learn how to manage my own money. I had to implement what he said before and saying that, hey, like I'm not going to be here forever. So that made me, it just put everything on overdrive. So I eventually graduated, and because I was really good at saving money and generating money, obviously I did really well in the financial space. So moving through the ranks at Vanguard, where they taught me the basics of investing, and I think Vanguard does a really good job just putting things in layman's terms and making it really simple for the client and doing everything for the client. It taught me about asset allocation, make sure you can control what you can control, and it just made it really simple and straightforward. And what I try to do is not only implement that in my own personal finance, but also teach people, hey, like it's more simple than what you think it is. I want you to understand what a trust fund is so you could pass wealth down to your family or to the next generation. I want you to open up a 529 plan so your kid doesn't have to go through what I went through. I want you to open up a brokerage account in order to start investing so you could take advantage of what's happening with Tesla or Apple or whatever the stock might be. And I think over time, those small chips will, have our people specifically investing more, understanding finances more, and thus they're able to pass that education down to their children. So maybe if we're not millionaires and we're not billionaires, they're sure the hell going to be millionaires and billionaires because they don't have a choice.
I know that's
Because
right.
so that's my end goal. If I don't meet or if I don't make it to a million, I want my kids to start off pretty high up, and I want them to understand that it's reachable for them.
I love that. Like you and I are on this same wavelength where, building wealth is a revolutionary thing for people of color. And I think, when we see what's going on in the world just yesterday with the announcement of yet another police killing of a Black woman in her home this time, she's sleeping, like we're not even safe at home. It's like, it's very easy to get into a headspace that it just feels like, what's the point? I think when you focus on the future generations and the power that we have to just be in control of our financial situation, because let's be honest, money is power in this country. And without it, like we are very limited in what we can do for ourselves, for our families. We got to focus on the long term game, the same way they talk about just, long term investing. We are investing for a greater purpose. And it's important to remember that when you think about what is the point of building wealth.
Yeah, we definitely need to rebel through education and knowledge. If you kind of think back to prior generations, that's what they did. They would go out and they would try to learn as much as possible to become
Hmm.
more well-rounded in order to invest more, in order to pass that down to the next generation. And we're doing that, but I would say we're trying to put down overdrive
Yes.
because we need to catch up. I mean, specifically for the black population, we're years and years and years behind. The others have had a multi-hundred year, a multi-century head start. And
Hmm.
at least for me, my both my parents were born and raised in the South in segregated schools. And
Wow.
they couldn't go off to college because my dad was from Alabama. Like, what were his choices? The University of Alabama, like maybe Alabama State because it's an HBCU. But other than
Hmm.
that, you don't really, like, you're not going to go to Auburn, right? Like, the chances of you getting killed there is pretty high.
Yeah.
Back in the 60s, 70s. So
Hmm.
we're really the first, at least for me, like the first generation that can say, hey, I wasn't born into segregation.
Yeah.
So I always talk to my peers who are all white and I tell them, hey, like, I'm not I don't want to catch up to you. Like I consider it a loss if I catch up to you by the time I die. My goal is to catch up to where your grandparents were at. And I want to make sure that when my kids are born, they're light years beyond your kids. You can call it a competition and you like you might get upset at what I'm telling you, but like I foresee my children going beyond you. And I want my people and the people of color to be beyond where your people are at, because you
Yeah.
guys have said this, like they always call me Malcolm X, because I'm always just educating them and saying, hey, like, we're light years behind and we're going to catch up, and I'm going to lead that charge.
Mm,
And gratefully they are receptive to that message, and a lot of them have learned from some of my teachings and saying, hey, like, I want to be part of that change as well. A lot of them have had conversations with me just saying, hey, how can I be part of the solution, from joining Big Brothers Big Sisters and becoming a big, to donating to some of the societies, to even just having a conversation like, hey, like, what did Deshaun Jackson mean by X? um
mm-hmm.
and let's have this conversation. So they're more open minded. But yeah, just to kind of sum it up, the goal is to pass them, and for us, our next generation to be what they hope to be, and what they hope their kids to be. So it's not just reaching where they're at right now.
I love that. All right. So, one of the things that you talked about on your platform and you recently celebrated was becoming debt free. So, you paid off $80,000 of debt in 3 years, which is mind blowing. So, I want to get into how you got into the debt. I'm assuming a big part of that was your student loan debt. And then, what strategies did you actually put in place to pay off this debt?
Yeah. So I would say when I first graduated in 2012, I realized that I was in the um, I was in the financial services space. I was making good money, but I was also spending a lot. The bad thing about going to Penn State is that it's a major party school. And, though I was, working a lot at the time, I was also having a lot of fun, which, 4 years of your life, I would definitely encourage that. But, I came out of school and I had, debt, and I had credit cards that I used to either party and or to go and pay for books. Um, so I would say, coming out 2012, analyzing what I call my budget, which was nothing even close to what I have now, I was just like, wow, like, I'm spending as much as I'm getting. This is bad,
Mm,
because
mm-hmm,
I thought I was going to be, a millionaire when I first started making all this money. I didn't know. I think I started off at like $50,000. I didn't like. I don't know of anyone who had $50,000 growing up. That was rich in my town and how I grew up. Um, so I started thinking through, okay, like, I need to start paying this debt down, but of course it took me a few years to get to that point. It's not overnight. I wasn't at a point where I was just like, oh well, tomorrow I'm going to start doing this. It was a
mm-hmm.
multi-year process to get my head in order. Um,
So, what did
frankly,
that look like?
yeah. So it was a lot of me trying to cut back on spending, going out, like going out to restaurants, traveling to certain places. I was still going back to Penn State, in order to, hang out with friends that are currently there. And then over time, I would say it took until about 2016, 2017 to really get my act in order. I filled out my first real budget, I would say. I tracked every dollar that I spent throughout the month and created a budget. And then from there, I started making certain tweaks to my budget in order to make sure that I had enough money at the end of the day in order to start paying down debt. The tweaks that I made, my car insurance was too high. I cut that in, well, pretty much in half, initially. My phone bill was $150, and I was just like, "Why is this?" And it's because I was
Mm-hmm.
I was leasing a phone from Apple.
Mm.
18 no I had yeah, AT&T at the time. I went to Straight Talk. And friends make fun of me. Hey, you have Straight Talk. Like, are you poor? I'm like, no, I just spend my money right. Um, it's like we have AT&T and Verizon. I'm just like, how much are you paying for that? And I bet I pay a third of the price. Um, so is that I eventually paid off my car. I stopped going shopping for clothes. Yeah, I was very cognizant on how much I was spending on food and going out. um, and from there I was able to tweak my budget to have some discretionary money at the end, and I started using that money to pay off whatever I wanted to pay off at the time. Initially, it was my car. So eventually, I paid off my car, and then I had another $340 left over, and then I used that. It was more of a an avalanche in a way where I paid off my car, and then next thing you know, I was like, okay, I need to pay off my credit cards, pay off my credit cards, and then I had all this money left over every month, and I was like, okay, I need to start putting this towards my student loans. And luckily, I was able to use a couple of bonuses from work, and all the money I had saved up in order to pay off my student loans in July. Um, what worked out was unfortunately the quarantine and COVID, because I wasn't spending as much throughout the beginning of this year, and
Mm-hmm.
then also I didn't have to make my student loan payments. So I was like, okay, or more so that I didn't have to pay interest on the student loan payment. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna save up all this money and then I'm gonna apply it to my student loans. So when July rolled around, I was able to put down a pretty hefty amount on my student loans, and now I'm debt free totally.
That is amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
One of the things I want to ask you about, because I feel like we all have like this light bulb moment that makes us change the way that we're dealing with money or just the relationship that we have with it. So, can you think about your light bulb moment? Like, was there a specific thing that made you say, like, okay, what I'm doing right now, this is just not a vibe anymore. I need to change?
Yeah, I would say when I started looking at all of my variable expenses
Mm-hmm.
and calculated how much that was. Like I joke about it on my blog where I'm like, yeah, like when you first do a budget, first calculate how much of your variable expense, like just variable expenses, just look at that, look at your fixed expenses. And then you start crying, like step number two, start crying when you realize how much money you blow. That was my literal experience. Literally, that was my experience to the T. I just remember I was sitting in a park in Philadelphia, and I was just going and adding up in my phone, and I was like, wow, I really spent $1,000 over a course of a month, from restaurants to going out to drink with friends to Ubers, whatever it might be, and I spend $1,000. What if I didn't spend 300 of that, or maybe if I only spent maybe $200 per month, I can apply that other 800 to my loans. And I started looking at the math, and I just remember like running back home and just doing the math on my computer, and I was like, if I use that money in order to pay down debt every single month, I'll be debt free by 2020.
Wow.
And I was just like, let's do it. Cause I was like, I mean, it was perfect. I'm a numbers person. So I was like, all right, 2020, I'll be 30 years old, 20 debt free by 30. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And, then I started just making small tweaks everywhere in my life. I changed how I commuted to work. I changed what I was taking to work to for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped getting my hair cut. Like, it was all types of different tweaks. I should mention I was a barber, so I knew how to cut my own hair. I
Ah,
don't I
okay.
don't encourage that to anyone. But I knew how to cut my own hair. And I was like, why am I paying for this? And as I
Mm-hmm.
started making those small tweaks, I started having more and more money that I could use to pay off of debt. But the light bulb moment was definitely that, when I realized how much money I was blowing, and then on top of that, how I could have saved that money in order to pay out debt. Um, like honestly, my goal was June 19th, 2020, because that was my 30th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
But it got pushed back because I had to pay for a couple things for my mom. But other than that, like it was a blessing to say that I'm debt free.
That's
Um,
major.
yeah, and what makes that day even more important is that was the day that my dad passed.
Oh,
11
wow.
years ago. So
So
I'll
the date
always
that you became debt free was the day of your
this.
dad's passing?
Yep, July 17th of 2009 is when he passed, and July 17th of 2020 is when I became debt free. So, yeah, so it's a special day. It the day you got wings, and the day I got my wings to escape debt. So,
Oh my gosh, I love that. I have goosebumps.
but yeah, it's been a fun journey. Like I always look back, and people are just like, "Oh, you must be clinically insane for what you had to go through," and frankly, I just laugh because I look at it as a journey that I can leverage to teach other people that hey, anything is possible. If I can get to where I'm at today, you can get to where you want to be into the future. There should be nothing holding you back. So I'm happy I could leverage my platform to do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So, I have some questions around investing because obviously you're someone who's very familiar with this space, but
Mhm.
investing is not something that many black and brown people even do. And if they even are thinking about doing, they're just like really scared about it. They don't know where to start. So, can you just give us a little bit of advice for anybody who is on the fence about investing, maybe because they're like the first one in their family to even start thinking about this? Like,
Yeah.
what are some steps they can take to start getting more comfortable with the idea and put things into place to start investing? You take care of your body by exercising, eating right, and getting enough sleep. But are you doing the same for your mind? On this podcast, we're always talking about mindset and mental health as the foundation for financial wellness. So we're super proud to partner with BetterHelp to get you access to professional, affordable therapy right at your fingertips. Even with health insurance coverage, traditional therapy costs over $100 per session, and that's if you can even get an appointment. Online counseling is an effective, convenient, and affordable way to get help with many issues. You can chat with your therapist at your convenience in whatever mode you're most comfortable with. Just take a short quiz and get personally matched with one of BetterHelp's professional, licensed, and experienced counselors and get the support and guidance you need to start making a change. As a reminder, online therapy is not suitable for someone who's suffering from a severe mental health condition that makes them a danger to themselves or others. Download the BetterHelp app today and get started with 10% off exclusively for Yo Quiero Dinero podcast listeners. Just use the discount code Dinero, that's DINERO, and you can get 10% off your first month. You can also go to betterhelp.com/dinero for the same offer. BetterHelp, affordable, private, online counseling, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a really good point. I would start off by honestly, I used to say, hey, like go online and look up Investopedia, but I honestly think the best step is just to get exposure to how easy it is, and how other people are doing it, and they're totally fine. I think that might be the first step.
Mm-hmm,
Look at the Instagram pages that focus on finance. Literally, just type in hashtag finance or hashtag investing, and just follow that.
mm-hmm,
You look through your phone more than you look at TV nowadays. So that's a good way of getting exposure outside of watching Bloomberg on TV. Like just do that; it's way more fun. Um, and you'll hear people talk about stocks and bonds and the Teslas and the Apples of the world and Netflix and all that. And then I would say over time you'll be used to the wording and the nomenclature that they're using. And then I would say as you feel comfortable, start you know taking the steps to invest. Obviously, you want to invest after you pay off debt. I would say high interest debt. You want to start investing when you have an emergency fund, normally about 3 to 6 months of your variable and fixed expenses that you have stashed to the side. Because you never know what would happen. I think COVID was a good example for a lot of folks that your job isn't guaranteed, your
Mm-hmm.
income source isn't guaranteed. So I would say that that's step number two. And then step number three is start investing. Is really simple. Over the years, the Vanguards and Fidelities and the Schwabs of the world, they've gotten really good with lowering their minimums. So back in the day, it was you had to have $3,000 and $5,000 in order to invest in these funds, and then they charge a ridiculous amount in order for you to even have them on the platform. Nowadays, a lot of it's free. Frankly, the way that the financial industry is moving, I wouldn't be surprised if all funds are free into the future.
So
Um,
how will they make money? Because I'm always curious about that.
how would they make money? They,
Yeah.
I'm letting finance secrets out, but they cross sell other products, right? So if you think about the classic example is if you go to McDonald's and they're selling something on the the dollar menu, they lose money. They call it a forgetting the actual term, a loss leader. They lose money on a dollar menu, but most people don't go to McDonald's and just buy something from the dollar menu, right? They're gonna go and they're gonna get that, small fry, but they're also gonna get that double quarter pounder with cheese meal, right? So like they're gonna get both, and they're making a profit off of the double quarter pounder with cheese meal. But the way that the carrot on the end of the stick is that dollar menu, right? So the same
Mm,
thing goes for Fidelity and Vanguard and so much and so forth, is for you to get used to their products through not charging for their investments. And then they say, hey, you just left that company. Have you thought about bringing your 401k to my company?
mm-hmm.
And they make money off of those fees.
Got
um,
it.
or they'll cross sell, hey, like we have an advisor that you could work with. It's only some 1% of your total amount that you have with us. Or they'll
Mm-hmm.
cross sell other products that are a little bit more expensive in order to make up for that, right? So the name of the game in the finance world is assets under management by any means possible,
Mm-hmm.
even if they have to give things away for free. So
That makes
that's
sense.
yeah. So that's a secret.
Got it.
Yeah. So if you're investing for the first time, after you pay down high interest debt, after you have an emergency fund set up for you and your family, start investing. You can go through an app like Fidelity or Vanguard. Keep using them as examples. Hopefully, they sent me money for this. But you can go there. It's really easy to set it up. The same amount of time it will take you to set up an Instagram or a Facebook account. You could set up. You could set up Fidelity or Vanguard brokerage account. They make it really simple, and if you don't know what you're doing at any time, you can call into their contact team, and they can walk you through it. A lot of them are licensed; they've been through it 1,001 times, and any question that you ask, they've probably have heard it 1,010,000 times. How do I know? Because I was one of those people before answering those questions. It was a lot of fun, and one of the reasons on why I stay in the finance world. I get
Mm-hmm.
to deal with people like that. Um, but yeah, so they'll walk you through the process, or you'll just go through the process online, and take 30-40 bucks and put yourself into a stock and just see how it goes. A lot of times when we're learning things, it's trial and error. I started learning investing. I bought my first stock. I bought my first Apple stock back in 2010. I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know anything about Apple or their financials or how well they're going to do. I just knew that I had an Apple phone and I thought it was cool, and I wanted to own a quote unquote part of the company. Um,
That's how it
so
starts for a lot of people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and it went from that to where I'm at today, and investing anytime that I get, a new dollar, I'm like, how can I invest it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. But yeah, start off with one stock, one mutual fund, one ETF, or exchange traded fund, which is nothing but a bucket of stocks that allow you to be more diversified and tend to be a little bit more cheaper. Um, and then just kind of ride it out. Don't sell out. Stay in it for a little bit, and then as you feel more comfortable, start adding more money into it. You don't have to start off with $10,000 and think that it's going to grow a lot over the course of a year. Start off with 40, $50 and see how it goes, and that will get you a little bit more comfortable with it. Um, and yeah, just go from there.
And so I want to build on what you're talking about because one of the big blockers in a lot of people's minds is like, oh my gosh, investing, I'm going to lose money. I see the numbers going down, the market's going to crash, and it's going to be all for naught. So, can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit about what the benefits are of investing versus just saving your money in a bank account?
Yeah, yeah, you can always save your money in a bank account. You can always do what I did when I was younger and put it under the mattress. But um, the issue that comes along with that, you have inflation, right? So if you put money under a mattress, money becomes more and more expensive over the years. So your money won't be worth as much into the future. Um, so that's why investing is important. So your money grows along with how the economy is growing the dollar, right? So like a dollar back in 2000, or I'm sorry, a dollar back in 1970 isn't the same dollar today. It's much more expensive. Um, so that's one benefit of investing, is that it tends to grow with inflation. Um, that's number one. Number two, I always say, hey, like, you should have money in your bank account. Maybe your emergency fund can be in your bank account or under your mattress or keep it in dollars, whatever it might be. But you definitely want to invest and take advantage of the market. And here's the thing, like, you don't have to be in the most risky investment. When people say, hey, like, I put all my money in Tesla, I'm like, that's the riskiest thing that you could ever possibly do. Or Bitcoin or crypto or what are the
Yeah,
other uh,
Forex.
Forex, right? Like, that's literally, if you talk to Warren Buffett and you were to ask him, how risky are you? He'd say, Forex that's too sweet for what I'm looking for, right?
Mm,
Even he's not that risky of an investor. He's well diversified in a lot of different sectors, and I feel like I'm getting really technical, but he isn't that risky. He doesn't believe in crypto. He doesn't believe in Bitcoin specifically, or Forex, or any of that, because it's way too risky. He much
mm-hmm.
rather ride an index, or invest into the S&P 500, which is a specific index, um, because he doesn't want to have that volatility. He doesn't want his money to go up and go down over a course of a couple days. Um,
I
so
would
uh,
say he knows what he's doing. So,
and he really knows what he's doing, and he keeps it simple.
right.
And one of his principles is that he won't invest into a company or a product that he doesn't understand, right? So, and he thinks very simply, and I think that's the reason why a lot of people connect with him, is because he's not talking in the air about these financial algorithms. Like, he's like, stay the course, invest long term, invest in the things that you really understand, and then, like, again, with long term, don't sell out, right? Don't be a market timer. So that's his philosophy, and it has worked for him over over the years, of course. um yeah, yeah, definitely. But here's the thing, as you mentioned, hey, like, you could lose money. You could definitely lose money in investing, right? But you don't lose money until you sell out, right? And money could, the stock market could crash and come back, right? If you invested in 2007, the market crash happened in 2008, 2009. If you never sold out and now it's 2020, you wouldn't have lost anything, right? Like, a complete crash happened, right? If you ignored your portfolio, or if you just went in a time machine into 2020, you wouldn't even notice it happen. You would realize that there was a dip in a graph that you had online, but other than that, you didn't lose anything. But if you would have sold out at the bottom, or anywhere, going down towards the end of of the market cycle, you would have lost money. So that's one thing I want to make clear is that you won't lose money until you sell out. Um, and on top of that, you don't gain money until you sell out as well. Um, so it's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, but just remember that make sure you understand, and I think Vanguard, Fidelity, and all the apps they do a good job of this. Maybe not as much Robinhood. I think they just want you to bring money in. Period. But you need to understand how much risk you're willing to take on. If you're not comfortable losing 50% of your total portfolio and the money that you have invested over a course of a day, you shouldn't be in anything that's highly risky. Highly risky being, individual stocks like Tesla. You should be in something a little bit more diversified. And what I mean by diversified is that, you have stocks, you have bonds, you have ETFs, and you have them in different sectors. So not only in tech, which I think is really popular now, the Googles, the Apples, what they call FANG stocks,
Mm-hmm.
the Facebooks, the Netflix, whatever it might be. You want to look also at automobiles. Like, are you in some of the automobile companies? Are you in the airline industry? Are you in consumer goods? Do you have Procter and Gamble? Do you have J&J? Because that way, if J&J has some massive fraud incident, right, like you're diversified in technology, that if that company completely goes down, you're not going to lose all your money. Or if Elon Musk says something about Tesla, and like he's always saying, and the market doesn't like that, and the stock tanks, you can always say, well, I have money in JetBlue, right? So you want to make sure that it's diversified in that way across industries, across companies, and frankly, not only domestic. You want to think international as well, in order to keep you from losing money. There's a lot of great international companies out there. Um,
So for people who are millennials, what percentage of stocks versus bonds should they typically be looking at from an asset allocation standpoint? Because I feel like the numbers change depending on who you talk to.
yeah, and it should, right? So no one investor is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Every investor is different. The way I react to the market is different from how you might react to the market. So I always tell my friends, like, I'm not an aggressive investor. I know a lot about investing, but I shy away from anything above, like, you know 80% stocks. I just
Mm-hmm.
I'm not strong enough for that. And I'm comfortable saying that. I know some people are just like, I'm 100% stocks. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to do that. But you could be, if you're a millennial, you have a lot of time on your hands, and it depends on your goals as well. So if your goal is to just grow your money over the course of 10 years, you might want to be a little bit more conservative versus if you're trying to grow your retirement fund for the next 40 years. You're not going to take the money out until 40 years from now. So right there is just, your specific goals is what you want to look at. How much time do you have, and what they call in the finance world is being time horizon.
Mm-hmm.
You want to understand your risk tolerance. I mentioned if the market drops 50% and your portfolio drops 50%, would you be comfortable with that? Or are you like me? Are you a wuss and you you don't want to have that much in stocks, right? So it's something else to think about. And as you think about those different measures and those different filters, you'll land on a certain investment, and then you ride that out for as long as you really want to. So it's really hard to say, hey, like, you millennial, this is what you should be in, because it really depends on different factors that that really have to do with how they look at money, how
Mm-hmm.
um, tolerant they are of risk, and how much time do they have on their hands.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so a lot of the brokerage firms, if not all of them, have risk tolerance calculators on
Yep.
their websites. So
Yep.
you can go and check out, literally, it's like a personality quiz.
Yeah.
And they will literally tell you like how risky you are personality wise and what that looks like from an investment portfolio standpoint. So that's a good place to start if you're just not even sure what risk level you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up. Yeah, risk tolerance questionnaires or risk tolerance calculators will help guide you to a certain investment that fits what you're potentially looking for.
Yeah. And I think I always go by the rule of thumb that any money that you need in the next like 3 to 5 years probably shouldn't be in the market, because especially when you're thinking about like long-term investing, and just if you understand the historic performance of the stock market in general, like there's a lot of variance in a 1 to 5 year time span.
Mhm.
So it's not really a place to just put money that you're going to need to take out right away. But if you've got long term goals like 5, 10, 20, 40 years out, that's definitely the place where you're going to get the better bang for your buck versus letting it sit in the bank account.
Exactly. Yep, you're spot on. I hear all the time, even from my friends, hey, Mark, where can I put my money in order to triple it over the course of a year? And I tell them, you sell drugs. Like, that's the only way you can go about doing it if you sell drugs. And we're not going to do that because I have higher aspirations for you. So you just hold on to your money and then just try to control what you can control. And that's, work longer hours, whatever it might be, in order to generate that money. But you're not going to get that in the stock market.
Absolutely not. And anybody who's trying to tell you that you are is running a Ponzi scheme,
They
so run away.
are, yes, yes, yes. So yeah, it's almost nearly impossible. And even if you do risk that amount, you can also, I should let me take a step back. Even if you are able to achieve that, you can still lose that over a course of a day, right? So if you want to chase something that's yielding 20% over a course of a year, you better, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but dang
Yes, you
well,
can.
you better know damn well that you could also lose 20% of that money in that same time frame and even quicker, right? So that's why it's so risky, is because there's swings up and swings down. Like Bitcoin is a perfect example. In Bitcoin, you can make, you can put $10,000 in. Yeah, you can make, $3,000, $4,000 if Bitcoin does really well over a course of a couple of days. But you can also lose that amount. And if you're not comfortable losing that amount, then you shouldn't be comfortable making that amount. If that makes any sense. So those are the swings I'm talking about, and that's why, like, I'm middle of the road, because I'm very comfortable losing 6%, and I'm very comfortable gaining 6%. And that's like my sweet spot. But as soon as you say you can lose 10% of your money, that's a problem for me. Like that like I'm knocking on someone's door and I'm like, what's good? Like, you stole all my money. Like like we have a problem. That's where I'm
Yeah.
from. It's just like someone stole your money. It's
Right.
like someone just like coming to your house and like spitting on it. It's a problem. Um
Yeah, and you got to know that about yourself. That's
yeah.
important.
You have to be comfortable, and you have to be comfortable in your own shoes. Like, as I mentioned, I have people in my own industry that, make fun and say, oh, like, you don't want to take on more risk. Like, you don't want to go in this triple levered ETF that is this, that, and the third, and it costs you this much money. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, I'm straight. First of all, I don't understand what the hell that is. Second of all, like, it's expensive, and third of all, I'm not comfortable with the volatility. I don't want to. There's other things I need to focus on. I don't have time to be looking at Market Watch or Bloomberg every single morning to just make sure I'm not losing money. Like, I'm good. Like, there's other things I much rather be focused on.
I love that. All right. So, last question before we wrap up. So, I ask this question to everyone because I really do believe that money and your mind are intricately connected, because, I mean, every decision you make affects what your external looks like. So, what is your money mantra?
Yeah, I have a lot, or many. I would say that the big one for me, is, it's not how much money you make, it's how much you save, and it's tried and true. Like, I think a good example is, I have my friend's parents. They recently retired, and the reason why they were able to retire right on time is because they didn't really spend that much.
Mm,
They might go on, a vacation here and there, but other than that, they drive. Cars are 10, 15 years old. Their house is, they had it, redone not too long ago, but if you look at it, you just think it's a, middle income, low middle income house. They didn't spend money on boats or anything of that nature. But then at the same time, they didn't really make too much money.
Hmm.
They both came from humble beginnings, um, and they didn't make that much, and they also didn't spend that much. Along the same vein, there are a lot of people out there that make 200, 300. I know people that make 200, 300, $400,000 a year, and they spend all of it because of lifestyle creep, which is a concept that I love to talk about because everyone does do it. Like everyone does it, from the athletes to the actors to what have you. They spend all their money. I think someone mentioned, during the lock, or not the lockdown, but the quarantine for the NBA, when they kind of paused it for a little bit, that a lot of the guys in the NBA, they live paycheck to paycheck and they make millions of dollars. You know why? Because they have these gold chains, they have all this stuff that they can't then go and sell and make the same amount of money. They have these cars, the houses, they have mortgages, and they have taxes that they have to pay. So when they leave the league, what happens? They go broke because they don't have any other income stream and they haven't saved anything. So, it's not about how much money you have, it's about how much money you keep at the end of the day. And I'd much rather make $80,000 and save, $70,000 of it than to be making $300,000 and be spending the vast majority of it. So it's just something to keep in mind. 'Cause I think everyone wants to chase, hey, like we need to make six figures or we need to make more than that. And, more money, more problems is definitely a thing. You have more taxes, like Uncle Sam loves you more when you make more money.
Hmm.
Um, and, you just have to keep that in mind, that there's other things you can control. You can give yourself 10%, a 10% promotion or a 10% bonus simply by making small changes in your life. And you don't have to beg the man, quote unquote, in order to give you a promotion. You can give a promotion to yourself by making those tweaks.
Absolutely. You cannot out earn bad spending habits.
Yes, that is so true. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, I think many of us have. I definitely fell victim to the lifestyle creep. I was like, yeah, once I make six figures, I'm gonna have all this money. And I just had more money to spend and more credit card debt. And it
Yes,
was just an endless cycle until I had a come to Jesus moment. And it's like, oh, okay, so it doesn't really matter how much money I make because I'm just being reckless as hell with it.
exactly. No, it's spot on. And I think we all kind of fall victim to wanting to impress friends and whoever else and try to be a status symbol. And I would say I have way more, people have way more respect for me because they know that I'm saving my money and I'm investing and my portfolio looks really good, versus the fact that, like, I'm, not wearing Jordans, like, for example. Like my shoes are modest. Like I don't like, I'll wear a pair of Nike Frees versus like wearing a pair of Jordans. Um, and I wear them purely for comfort. I don't wear them to show them off. Um,
That's the real flex.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like my feet feel good. Like I don't want to wear clunky Jordans, but that's just me.
Yeah,
Shout out
I
to all
love
my
that.
New York folks. Like they probably hate me right now. Like, what's good, B? What's good? Yeah,
I love it. All right. So, Mark, this has been an amazing conversation. I love all of the information you're sharing, both here on the podcast and on your platform. So, for anybody who wants to find out more about you and follow your journey, where can they find you?
Yeah, yeah. So you can go to Better Wallet. Um, I post a lot about just finance and my journey, and my goal is to help motivate you to pay off debt and to build generational wealth. So shoot me a message at any time, and we can chat.
Thank you so, so much. This has been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the next time.
Thank you. Mi gente, I hope you were really inspired by this episode. There was a really specific reason why I saved this one for our season finale. And a lot of it just really has to do with reflecting on the year that is 2020. When I think of Mark's story, it's a story of overcoming so many barriers, so many roadblocks, so many reasons why he should not be where he is. And despite all of those challenges, he still not only survived, but thrived. I hope that that allows you to reflect on the things that you have been able to accomplish, even in this most difficult year. When it comes to adversity, we have a couple of options. We can allow it to get us down, to control us, or we can take steps to control how we respond to what comes our way. The second option is the one that helps us rise above it, right? But I will be the first to admit that exercising this option is sometimes harder than it should be. So, learning how to move forward and getting past these tough times is something that you have to learn how to do. Resilience is not a skill that just comes out of nowhere. It is the direct result of overcoming challenges and knowing that you have the confidence and the fortitude and the strength to get past anything that comes your way. So I hope that this episode has you feeling inspired. It has you feeling like you can also overcome any challenges that you're facing today, tomorrow. We don't know what the future holds, but if you believe that you can overcome anything, I think that's the first step to success. So, thank you so much, guys, for being a part of this amazing community. Thank you so much for supporting this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And I can't wait until season 3, y'all. We're going to be premiering in January. It's going to be even more amazing, even more inspiring, and even more poderosa. So, on that note, stay poderosa, y'all. I'll see you next year. On the Yo Quiero Dinero podcast and associated entities, all information provided is for general information purposes only and does not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Listeners should not act upon the content or information found here without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. We assume no responsibility for information contained on this podcast and associated entities and disclaim all liability with respect to such information, including but not limited to any liability for errors, inaccuracies, omissions, or misleading or defamatory statements. Usage of this podcast and associated content constitutes an explicit understanding and acceptance of the terms of this disclaimer.